I was inside the compound, breath held, pressed flat against the cold concrete wall, in complete darkness. 5 enemy soldiers walked past me, so close I could smell the cigarette smoke on their uniforms. Their boots crunched on gravel, 2 meters from my face. One of them stopped, turned, looked directly at where I was hiding. I didn't move, didn't breathe. After 5 seconds that felt like 5 hours, he shrugged and kept walking. They never saw me. Nobody ever did. That's why they call me Ghost. But let me back up, because this story doesn't start in an enemy compound in the middle of nowhere. It starts 6 weeks earlier, in a conference room at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, where I learned exactly what the brass thought of me. My name is Captain Elena Reeves, 29 years old, 8 years in the Army, 6 of those in Special Operations. I just finished a deployment in Eastern Europe, classified work that I still can't talk about, and they'd reassign me to the Pentagon, Strategic Planning Division. Important work, my commanding officer said when he delivered the news. Career advancement opportunity. What he meant was, we're putting you behind a desk where you can't cause trouble. I reported for duty on a Monday morning in September. The strategic planning office was on the 3rd floor, a maze of cubicles and conference rooms that smelled like burnt coffee and printer ink. My new boss was a full-bird colonel named Marcus Hendricks, 6'4", West Point graduate, with a chest full of medals and a handshake that could crush walnuts. He looked at my file, looked at me, and frowned. Captain Reeves. Special Operations background. Interesting. He said it the way you'd say interesting about a stain on your shirt. We don't get many operators up here in the Puzzle Palace. No, sir. You'll be working on contingency planning, logistics, resource allocation, that sort of thing. Desk work mostly. He slid a stack of folders across his desk. These need analysis by Friday. Think you can handle that? I'd spent the last 6 years doing things I couldn't tell my own mother about. I'd operated behind enemy lines in 4 different countries. I spoke 3 languages fluently and could blend into a crowd so well that my own teammates sometimes lost track of me during training exercises. But sure, I could handle some desk work. Yes, sir. Good. Jenkins will show you to your desk. Jenkins was a young lieutenant with perfect hair and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He walked me through the office, introducing me to the team. There were 12 of them, all men, ranging from junior officers to senior NCOs. They were polite, professional, but I could see it in their faces. The same look I'd seen 100 times before. Curiosity mixed with skepticism. What's a woman doing here? What makes her so special? So you were in Special Ops? One of them asked. Major Patterson, a logistics officer with graying hair. What unit? Can't say, sir. Still classified. He smiled. Of course. Well, welcome to the team. It's a lot different from the field, but you'll get used to it. I nodded and didn't say what I was thinking. I didn't join the Army to get used to sitting in a cubicle. For 3 weeks, that's all I did. I analyzed supply chains, reviewed contingency plans, attended meetings where people argued about PowerPoint slides. I was good at it, detail-oriented, thorough, but every day felt like I was slowly suffocating. This wasn't why I joined. This wasn't who I was. Then everything changed on a Thursday afternoon in October. I was in a planning meeting, half listening to a discussion about helicopter maintenance schedules, when Colonel Hendricks' phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, his face went pale, and he stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. Meeting's over. Everyone out except senior staff. We filed out and I went back to my desk, but 10 minutes later Jenkins appeared. Captain Reeves. Colonel wants you in the Situation Room. Now, the Situation Room was in the basement, a secure facility with reinforced walls and enough electronic equipment to launch a satellite. When I walked in, there were maybe 20 people inside, generals, intelligence officers, people with enough stars on their shoulders to fill a galaxy. And they all looked stressed. Hendricks waved me over. Reeves, you have experience with infiltration operations, correct? Yes, sir. Recent experience. My last deployment involved. Yes, sir. Recent. He gestured to a screen showing satellite imagery. It was a compound somewhere mountainous, surrounded by high walls and guard towers. This is a Taliban stronghold in northeastern Afghanistan, about 40 clicks from the Pakistan border. 3 days ago, they captured a high-value target, an ISI intelligence officer who was working with us. The Pakistanis want him back. We want the intelligence he was carrying, and nobody wants him talking to the Taliban about what he knows. I studied the image. What's the timeline? 72 hours, max. After that, they'll either move him or kill him. Has anyone tried to get him out? A 2-star general I didn't recognize spoke up. We sent a Delta team in last night. They couldn't penetrate the perimeter. Too many guards, too much open ground. We lost the element of surprise and had to abort. He looked at me like I was wasting his time. Why is she here, Marcus? Hendricks ignored him. Reeves, I need an honest assessment. Is this doable? I looked at the satellite image again, zooming in on the details. The compound had 3 buildings, guard towers on each corner, a single main gate. The walls were 12 feet high, topped with barbed wire. Patrol patterns visible in the thermal imaging. It was a hard target, but I'd seen harder. Alone or with a team? I asked. The room went quiet. The 2-star general actually laughed. Alone? Captain, this isn't a video game. We're talking about a fortified enemy position with 60+ hostiles. I kept my eyes on Hendricks. Sir, you asked if it's doable. With a team, you're looking at the same problem Delta had. Too many bodies, too much noise. But a single operator, someone who knows how to move quietly, could potentially infiltrate during a guard change, locate the target, and extract before anyone notices. That's insane, Patterson said. He was standing near the back, arms crossed. Even if you got inside, how would you get out with a prisoner? I didn't say it would be easy, sir. I said it was doable. Hendricks looked at the other officers, then back at me. You're volunteering for this? If you need someone to do it, sir, then yes. The 2-star general shook his head. Marcus, with all due respect, sending a single operator, especially one with no field experience in Afghanistan, is suicide. We should wait for another Delta element to arrive in. She has field experience. Hendricks cut him off. Captain Reeves' file is classified, but I've read it. She's qualified. He looked at me. But I need to know you can actually do this. Not theory. Not maybe. Can you get in and out of that compound with the target? I thought about every mission I'd run over the past 6 years. The embassy infiltration in Belarus. The arms dealer's compound in Moldova. The safe house in Syria where I'd spent 3 days hidden in a crawl space gathering intelligence while enemy soldiers searched the building. And I thought about why they call me Ghost. Yes, sir. I can do it. He nodded slowly. Then you're greenlit. You leave in 4 hours. The room erupted. Officers arguing. People pulling Hendricks aside. Everyone talking at once. But I wasn't listening. I was already running through the mission in my head. Equipment I'd need. Entry points. Extraction routes. The part of my brain that had been dormant for 3 weeks suddenly roared to life. Jenkins drove me to a secure facility in Virginia where they kept the specialized gear. I requisitioned everything I needed. Black tactical clothing, lightweight body armor, suppressed pistol, night vision, comms equipment, and a small med kit. No rifle. Too bulky for infiltration work. I packed light, efficient, exactly the way I'd been trained. They flew me to Bagram on AC-17, and from there I took a helicopter to a forward operating base near the Pakistan border. The team leader, there was a special forces captain named Morrison. He looked at me like I just landed from Mars. You're the operator they sent? He asked. That's right. One person. That's the plan. He shook his head. No offense, Captain, but this is a bad idea. We've been tracking this compound for months. It's locked down tight. The Delta team had 8 shooters, and they couldn't get close. I'm not going to get close, I said. I'm going to get inside. We went over the intelligence together. Guard rotations, building layouts, thermal imaging showing where the prisoner was likely being held. Morrison's team had eyes on the compound from a ridge about 2 clicks away, and they'd set up an extraction point for when I came out. If I came out, you sure about this? Morrison asked. I looked at the compound through the spotting scope. The sun was setting, turning the mountains the color of rust. In 3 hours it would be full dark. That's when I'd move. I'm sure. At 2,200 hours, I left the FOB on foot. Morrison wanted to send a team with me for Overwatch, but I declined. More people meant more chances of being spotted. I moved alone through the mountains, using the terrain for cover, my night vision turning the world into shades of green. It took 90 minutes to reach the outer perimeter of the compound. I found a position in the rocks about 300 meters out and watched. The guards changed shifts at 23:30. Like clockwork, 6 men walked to the gate, 6 men walked out, and for about 45 seconds there was confusion as they traded places and talked. That was my window. At 23:28, I moved. Low and fast, using every shadow, every dip in the ground. When the guards started their shift change, I was already at the base of the wall. I could hear them talking on the other side, laughing about something. I pulled out a collapsible hook, threw it over the wall, and climbed. 12 feet in 4 seconds. I dropped into the compound just as the shift change ended. Inside, I pressed myself against the wall and waited. Listened. 2 guards walking patrol about 50 meters to my left. Another one on the far tower, but his attention was outward, watching for threats coming from outside. Nobody expected a threat already inside. I moved toward the main building, the one where thermal imaging suggested they were keeping the prisoner. The door was guarded by a single sentry, smoking a cigarette. I circled around to the back, found a window on the second floor. It was locked, but the lock was cheap. I had it open in 15 seconds. Inside, the building was dark and quiet. I moved through the hallways like smoke, my suppressed pistol ready, but knowing I couldn't use it unless absolutely necessary. One gunshot, even suppressed, and the whole compound would wake up. I found stairs leading down to a basement level. That's where they'd be keeping him. The basement was lit by a single bare bulb. 3 cells, 2 empty, 1 occupied. The prisoner was a man in his 40s, bruised and exhausted, sitting on a concrete floor. 2 guards stood outside his cell, talking in Pashto. I understood enough to know they were complaining about the food. I waited in the shadows at the base of the stairs. Waited for one of them to move, to walk away, to give me an opening. But they didn't. They just stood there. So I improvised. I picked up a piece of loose concrete and threw it down the hallway in the opposite direction. It clattered loudly. Both guards turned, drew their weapons, and one of them walked toward the sound to investigate. The moment his back was turned, I moved. The first guard never saw me coming. I hit him in the back of the head with the butt of my pistol, and he dropped. The second guard turned, surprised, and I was on him before he could shout. A quick strike to the throat, another to the temple, and he went down too. The whole thing took maybe 5 seconds. The prisoner stared at me through the bars, eyes wide. "Who are you?" he whispered in English. "Extraction." I pulled out a lockpick set and went to work on the cell door. "Can you walk?" "I think so." "Good. Stay close and stay quiet." I got the cell open, helped him up, and we started moving back toward the stairs. But halfway there, I heard voices. More guards, coming down from above. I pulled the prisoner into a side room, a supply closet, and we pressed ourselves into the corner behind some shelves. The guards walked past, flashlights sweeping the hallway. They found their unconscious colleagues and started shouting. Alarms went off. The whole compound lit up like a Christmas tree. "We're trapped," the prisoner whispered. "Not yet." I checked the window in the supply closet. It was small, maybe 2 feet across, but it led outside. I smashed the glass with my elbow, cleared the shards, and looked out. We were on the ground level, about 6 feet above the courtyard. And the courtyard was now crawling with guards. "We can't go out there," the prisoner said. "We're not." I pulled out a smoke grenade and threw it into the courtyard. It detonated with a loud pop, filling the air with thick white smoke. Guards shouted, confusion spreading. And in the chaos, I dropped through the window and pulled the prisoner after me. We ran through the smoke, staying low. I could hear guards all around us, but they couldn't see us. I headed for the wall, the same spot where I climbed in. My rope was still there. I sent the prisoner up first, then followed. At the top of the wall, I looked back and saw guards pouring out of the building, searching the smoke. We dropped on the other side and ran. Sprinted through the darkness toward the extraction point, the prisoner struggling to keep up. Behind us, I heard vehicles starting, searchlights sweeping the mountains. They knew someone had gotten in and out, but they didn't know where we were. Morrison's team met us at the extraction point with a Humvee. We piled in, and they drove us back to the FOB, pushing the vehicle hard over rough terrain. The prisoner was gasping, exhausted, and I checked him for injuries. Bruised ribs, cuts on his face, but nothing life-threatening. "Thank you," he said. "I thought I was going to die in there." I nodded. "You're safe now." When we got back to base, Morrison pulled me aside. "That was the craziest thing I've ever seen. How did you get inside?" "Carefully." He laughed. "No, seriously. We've been trying to crack that compound for months. I got lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. He looked at me with something like respect. What did you say your name was? Reeves. Captain Elena Reeves. Well, Captain Reeves, you just did the impossible. They flew me back to Bagram, and from there back to Andrews. When I walked into the Pentagon 36 hours after I'd left, I went straight to Hendricks' office. He was on the phone, but when he saw me he hung up immediately. Reeves, sit down. I sat. He pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. It was a mission report, already classified above top secret. The prisoner is safe, he said. He's being debriefed now. The intelligence he carried was intact. The Pakistanis are happy, the agency is happy, and the Joint Chiefs are very, very impressed. He leaned back in his chair. I just got off the phone with JSOC. They want to know who you are. I'm just a captain, sir. No. He smiled. You're not. I read your full file, Reeves. The classified parts. 23 successful infiltration operations in 6 years. Never compromised. Never detected. The agency started calling you Ghost after the 3rd mission because you disappear and reappear like you were never really there. I didn't say anything. Why didn't you tell anyone? He asked. You didn't ask, sir. He laughed. Fair enough. He pulled out another folder. I'm reassigning you. JSOC wants you for a new joint task force. Special access program. The kind of work you're actually trained for. He paused. Unless you'd rather stay here and analyze logistics reports. I'll take the reassignment, sir. Good. You leave Monday. He stood up, offered his hand. It was an honor, Captain Ghost. I shook his hand. Thank you, sir. That should have been the end of it. A successful mission, a new assignment, back to doing what I was good at. But 3 days later, on Friday afternoon, Colonel Hendricks called an all-hands meeting. Everyone from the Strategic Planning Division, all 12 officers plus support staff, packed into the main conference room. Hendricks stood at the front, and I had a bad feeling about where this was going. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, I want to talk about assumptions. 3 weeks ago, Captain Reeves joined our team, and if I'm being honest, most of us made assumptions about her, about what she could do, about where she belonged. He looked around the room. We were wrong. He pulled up a slide on the projector. It showed satellite imagery of the Taliban compound, before and after. The after image showed smoke, guards running everywhere, chaos. This is what Captain Reeves did on Tuesday night. Alone. She infiltrated a fortified enemy compound that a full Delta team couldn't crack, extracted a high-value prisoner, and got out without firing a single shot. The operation has already been classified, but I wanted you all to know what she's capable of. The room was dead silent. I could feel everyone staring at me. Patterson raised his hand. Sir, with respect, how is that even possible? Hendricks smiled. Why don't you ask her yourself? Captain Reeves, would you mind explaining your operational background? I stood up slowly. 12 pairs of eyes on me. I thought about all the times I've been underestimated, all the times people had made assumptions based on what they saw instead of what I could do. And I decided I was done being quiet about it. For the past 6 years, I said, I've been part of a classified special access program. My job was infiltration and intelligence gathering in denied areas. I've operated in Belarus, Moldova, Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. I speak Russian, Arabic, and Pashto. My call sign is Ghost. And before Tuesday, I completed 23 missions without ever being detected. Major Patterson's mouth fell open. 23 missions? Why? Why didn't you say anything? Because I'm not supposed to. My work is classified. Most of the people I've worked with don't even know my real name. I looked around the room. But Colonel Hendricks thought you should know, so now you do. For a long moment, nobody said anything. Then Jenkins started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster, and then the whole room joined in. I stood there, uncomfortable with the attention, while they applauded. After the meeting, several of them came up to apologize. Patterson actually looked embarrassed. Captain, I'm sorry. I made assumptions. That wasn't fair. It's fine, sir. No, it's not. You saved a man's life, and I didn't even think you could handle desk work. He offered his hand. Thank you for your service. Real service. I shook his hand. Thank you, sir. That night, I packed up my desk. The new assignment started Monday, and I'd be moving to a different facility. As I was carrying my boxes to my car, I ran into Hendricks in the parking lot. Reeves, he called out. Got a minute? I set the boxes down. Yes, sir. He walked over, hands in his pockets. I wanted to apologize. When you first arrived, I made assumptions too. I saw your file and thought, okay, special operations, probably did some dangerous stuff, but now she's here for easy duty. I didn't realize who you really were. You couldn't have known, sir. I should have asked. I should have treated you like the professional you are from day one. He smiled. You taught me something, Captain, about not judging people by what we think we know. I appreciate that, sir. Where are they sending you? Or is that classified too? Classified, sir. He laughed. Of course it is. Well, wherever it is, they're lucky to have you. He saluted me, crisp and formal. Good luck, Ghost. I saluted back. Thank you, sir. I drove home that night thinking about the mission, about the prisoner's face when I opened his cell, about the chaos in the compound as we escaped. And I thought about what Morrison had said. You just did the impossible. But it wasn't impossible. It was just hard. And I've been doing hard things my whole life. The new assignment turned out to be exactly what I needed. A small, elite team working on high-priority missions that nobody else could handle. We operated in the shadows, doing work that would never make the news, saving lives that would never know we existed. It was dangerous, exhausting, and exactly where I belonged. Over the next 3 years, I ran another 47 missions. Some of them were straightforward. Get in, gather intelligence, get out. Others were complex, multi-stage operations that took months of planning. I infiltrated terrorist cells, gathered evidence on war criminals, and extracted people from places that officially didn't exist. And through it all, I stayed invisible. Ghost. But here's what I learned. Being underestimated isn't always a bad thing. When people don't expect you to be capable, you can use that. You can move through the world without drawing attention. You can be dismissed, overlooked, forgotten. And then, when it matters, you can do the impossible. I think about that Thursday afternoon in October, standing in the Situation Room while generals debated whether I could handle a mission. I think about Patterson asking how it was even possible. And I think about Colonel Hendricks finally seeing me for who I really was. The truth is, I'd been there the whole time. They just hadn't been looking. That's the thing about ghosts. We're always there. You just don't see us until we want you to. 3 months ago, I retired from active duty. 20 years of service, countless missions I can never talk about, and a DD-214 that lists my occupation as administrative specialist because my real work is still classified. I train new operators now, teaching them the skills that kept me alive for 2 decades. How to move silently, how to blend in, how to become invisible when you need to be. Sometimes, during training exercises, I'll watch a young operator, usually someone who's been underestimated, overlooked, and I'll see that look in their eyes. The one that says, I can do this. I just need someone to give me a chance. And I always do, because I remember what it felt like. Last week, one of my students, a quiet woman from Texas who nobody expected to make it through selection, completed her first solo infiltration exercise. She got in and out of a secured facility without being detected, recovered the target intelligence, and made it to extraction before anyone knew she was there. When she came back, the other instructors were amazed. How did she do it? They asked. I smiled. She's a ghost. The student looked at me, and I saw the pride in her eyes. The understanding that she'd done something difficult, something important, that she'd proven herself not to me, but to herself. What's your name? I asked her. Lieutenant Sarah Chun, ma'am. No. Your call sign. What do you want to be called? She thought for a moment, then smiled. Shadow. I nodded. Good name. Welcome to the family, Shadow. She walked away, and I watched her go, and I thought about all the ghosts and shadows and invisible operators who'd come before. All the people who'd been underestimated and overlooked and told they couldn't do something, and then did it anyway. That's the real story. Not the missions, not the danger, not the classified operations that most people will never hear about. It's about proving, to yourself, more than anyone else, that you're capable of more than people think. It's about becoming invisible when you need to be, and then showing up exactly when it matters. It's about being a ghost, and I wouldn't have it any other way.